Hey guys, this is a different kind of video. My friend and I were listening to The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde, and somebody read it, I told her to make a video reading something, and I said that I would read something as well. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to have to do it in several parts, but it's worth it. Um, when I'm done reading it, I might talk a little bit about why I chose this one, but in the meantime, this is it. It's called The Documentary Artist. It's written by Jamie Manrique. He's a Colombian author. He's LGBT related stuff. I think he's fantastic. So I'm gonna read The Documentary Artist. Part 1. I met Sebastian when he enrolled in one of my film directing classes at the university where I teach. Soon after the semester started, he distinguished himself from the other students because he was very vocal about his love of horror movies. Our special intimacy started one afternoon when he burst into my office, took a seat before I invited him to do so, and began telling me in excruciating detail about a movie called The Evil Mommy, which he had seen in one of those 42nd Street theaters he frequented. And at the end of the movie, he said, as a boy is praying in the chapel to the statue of this bleeding Christ on the cross, Christ turns into the evil mommy, and she jumps off of the cross and removes the butcher knife from between her breasts and goes for the boy's neck. She chases a screaming boy all over the church until she gets him. He paused to check my reaction. After she cuts off his head, he went on, almost with relish, she places his head on the altar. As he narrated these events, the whites of Sebastian's eyes distended frighteningly. His fluttering hands drew arabesques in front of his face, and guttural, gross croaks erupted from the back of his throat. I was both amused and unsettled by the wild, manic performance. Although I'm no great fan of B-horror movies, I was impressed by his love of film. Also, I appreciated the fact that he wasn't colorless or lethargic as so many of my students were. I found his drollness and the aura of weirdness he cultivated enchanting. Even so, right at that minute I decided I would do my best to keep him at a distance. It wasn't so much that I was attracted to him, which was dangerous for a teacher, but I found his energy a bit unnerving. Sebastian started showing up at least once a week during office hours. He never made an appointment, and he seldom discussed his work with me. There's a couch across from my chair, but he always sat on the bench that abuts the door as if he was afraid to come any closer. He'd talk about the new horror movies he had seen, and sometimes dropped a casual invitation to go see a movie together. It soon became clear to me that, despite his dirty clothes, disheveled hair, and loudness, because of his love of bizarre and gothic, he was a loner. One day, while I was having a sandwich in the cafeteria, he came over and joined me. You've heard of Foucault? He asked me. Sure, why? Well, last night I had a dream when Foucault talked to me and told me to explore my secondary discourse. In the dream, there was a door with a sign that said "Leather and Pain." Foucault ordered me to open it. When I did, I heard a voice that told me to come in and see you today. I stopped munching on my sandwich and sipped my coffee. This morning I had my nipple pierced, Sebastian continued, touching the spot on his t-shirt. The guy who did it told me about this guy who pierced his dick, then made 2 dicks out of his penis so he could double the pleasure. My mouth fell open. I sat there speechless. Sebastian stood up. "See you in class," he said as he left the table. I lost my appetite. I considered mentioning the conversation to the department chairman. Dealing with students' crushes was not new to me. I, too, had crushes on some of my teachers. I decided it was all harmless, and that as long as I didn't encourage him, there was no reason to be alarmed. As I reviewed my own feelings, I told myself I was not attracted to him, so I wasn't in danger of playing into his game. End of part 1. Part 2. Sebastian turned into his first movie, an absurdist zany farce shot in one room in which he played all the roles and murdered all the characters in very gruesome ways. The boundless energy of his work excited me. One afternoon, late that fall, he came to see me, looking upset. His father had had a heart attack, and Sebastian was going home to New Hampshire to see him in the hospital. I had already approved his proposal for his final project for that semester, an adaptation of Kafka's The Hunger Artist. I reassured him that even if he was going to be absent for a couple weeks, it would not affect his final grade. "Oh, that's good," he said, lowering his head. "But I'm upset about going home because I'm gay." "Have you come out to them?" I asked. Are you kidding? His eyes filled with rage. My parents would shit cookies if they knew. You never know, I said. Parents can be very forgiving when it comes to their children. Not my parents, he snorted. Sebastian then told me his story. When I was in my teens, I took one of those IQ tests, and it said that I was a mathematical genius or something. That's how I ended up at MIT at 15 with a full scholarship. You know, I was kind of a loner. All I wanted was to make my parents happy. So I studied hard and made straight A's, but I hated that shit and those people. My classmates and my teachers were as... He paused, and there was anger and sadness in his voice. They were as abstract and as dry as those numbers and theories that pumped into my head. One day I thought, if I stay here, I'm going to be a basket case before I graduated. I always wanted to make horror films. Movies are the only thing I care about. That's when I announced to my parents that my decision to quit MIT and to pursue my studies in filmmaking. His parents, as Sebastian put it, freaked. They were blue-collar people who had pinned all their hopes and dreams on him and his brother, an engineer. There was a terrible row. Sebastian went to a friend's house and got drunk. That night, driving back home, he had lost control of his car and crashed it against a tree. For 45 days he was in a coma. When he came out of it, nothing could shake his decision to become a filmmaker. He received partial scholarship at a school where I teach and supported himself by doing catering jobs and working as an extra in movies. He told me about how brutal his father was to the entire family, about the man's bitterness. So now, a year after he left MIT, going back home to see his father in the hospital was hard. Sebastian wasn't sure he should go, but he wanted to be there in case his father died. When Sebastian didn't return to school in 2 weeks, I called his number in the city, but I got a machine. I left messages on a couple of occasions, but I got no reply. Next, I called his parents. His mother informed me that his father was out of danger and that Sebastian had returned to New York. At the end of the semester, I gave him an incomplete. In the summer, I started a documentary of street life in New York. I spent a great deal of time in the streets with my camera, shooting whatever struck me as odd or representative of street life. In the fall, Sebastian did not show up, and I thought about him less and less. That's the first half of the documentary artist. I'll read the second half in my next video, but I'll talk a little bit about why I like it. I think, for one, it calls to me a lot. One, because I'm LGBT. I'm queer, to some degree, whatever degree that is. I'm a filmmaker. I love horror films. And the writing is, and I love Kafka, and I love documentaries. But the writing, the characters are really, I mean, it's translated. You can kind of tell that it's translated, but there's something haunting about the characters, I think. So I think I'm going to read the second one now, second half. So if you're only here for my trans stuff, don't watch the next video. But if you like the story and you want to know what happens to Sebastian, keep reading. Keep listening to me read. Okay.